Welcome to Talk to the Future, where the future of sales isn't predicted, it's built. Each episode features real conversations with the operators, marketers, and innovators driving what's next. From AI and automation to the strategies that are converting right now. No fluff, just what's working.
All right, we're back here in beautiful sunny Las Vegas at LeadsCon. I'm Mr. Bigley. Tell us about yourself. What brings you out here today?
So I'm Brian Stacey, the CEO and founder of Decision Science. We are a direct mail targeting firm, right?
So just direct mail?
Not just direct mail, but mostly direct mail, right? So probably 90% of our business right now is direct mail. We do some email targeting. We're always looking at other verticals and other channels that we can target for, right?
So define, what do you mean by targeting? I don't understand. So what am I trying to target and why?
So let me tell you who we're not, right? And then I'll tell you what targeting is. We're not a data company and we're not a direct mail fulfillment company. I don't print mail. I do design mail, but I don't print mail, and I don't have the source data upon which all this is.
And you don't actually mail it.
And I don't actually mail it.
And you're not a data company.
So what I do is I take the data from, say, a credit bureau, right? Let's say we're targeting for a consolidation loan. I get the data from a credit bureau. I have models that are built on that data and years and millions of records of past performance that tell me what consumer is going to respond. And not just what consumer is going to respond, but the probability that you're going to respond, the probability that these people walking past are going to respond, right? From that, I can go to my client and say, hey, look, what are you looking for a response rate? What are you looking for average amount of the loan underwritten, et cetera, right? And we can model that all out for them and say, these are the best 450,000 consumers for you to send mail to that will get you the most amount of return.
Now, why is that important? Why not just send it to everyone?
So if you send it to everyone, which we've done, not everyone, but we've done a bunch of random tests where we send, a few 100,000 records out to
everyone, the zip code, everyone,
population. Yeah. And on average, for that particular product, right, for a consolidation loan product, your average response rate for a random test is 29 basis points. So 0.29% response. And if you can make 0.29% response work for you and you can make money doing that, then bully for you, right? Go for it. Most people can't do it because the economics
depends on the offer and if you're a direct buyer or not, and
right.
The
economics don't work out for most people at that response rate, and so they need
not their close rate either.
Right.
That's the response rate.
Right.
The close rate is
the close rate varies
somewhere
wildly.
between 1% and 20%.
Yeah, or higher. We've seen some shops that have worked with us have done 25% close. Which is a combination of their sales team being really good at what they do.
I hear a lot of people tell me, "Oh, we close everything." I don't see people closing everything.
Nobody closes everything.
I don't see people. We close half of the deals that come by. I don't see people closing half the deals.
Yeah. But we can help with that too, right? So not only can we get them in the door with response, but we have conversion propensity models that help, right? So if you're closing 10%. Just the way you are now, and you layer in our model, we might be able to get that up to 15%, right? We're not gonna change.
So your model helps with close rate because the people have so much more of a propensity to buy,
right? So
it doesn't just help with the initial conversion. So if I'm starting at a 0.29, what do I get if I use your product?
Well, I mean, it all depends on the offer that you're making, but in general, our conversion propensity models will usually add another 25 to 50% on whatever it is your close rate is today. So if you're closing at 10%, that can go up to 12.5 to 15, right?
Yeah, forget about close rate. What about response rate?
If your response rate, you start at 0.29, right? Yep. 29 basis points, nothing. If you mailed 400,000 pieces and you were operating in all 50 states today, we could get you a response rate of about 1% on that same offer.
So almost 4x.
So about 4x. And it goes down, the response rate decreases with the volume, right? Because we choose the best at the top and then we work our way down, right? So 500,000 isn't going to be 1% response rate. It's going to be, 92 basis points response rate. And 600,000 is going to be 90 basis points response rate, but it's still at more response.
Oh, a ton more.
And so that's part of what differentiates us from some of our competitors is that we work with our clients to figure out what that number is, right? So if at 1%, response rate and a 10% close rate, right? What's the economics for you? How many pieces can we mail and make that work, right? Where's the trade-off between volume, response, conversion, and size of loan written in this case, right? That gets you to the most profitability, and how can we get you there?
What sub-segments or industries are your strongest?
So we do a ton of financial services, obviously, right? I'm talking financial
We do a ton of
services
financial
stuff
services.
right off the cuff here. We do some mortgage stuff. We're actively building out models to replace the trigger leads that no longer exist.
Do they
right?
no longer exist, or they only go to the big? So I thought it would still go to Chase and Bank of America and those
Only
guys.
if you have a pre-existing relationship, right? So if you've got a Chase mortgage, Chase can hit you right on.
What if I have a
trigger
Chase
leads.
bank account?
If you have a Chase bank account, that's a little bit greater, but probably they can still get you, right? What we're trying to
What
do
if you
is,
have a credit card?
that's a good. I don't know the answer to that question. But what we're trying to do is,
So it's only for the big banks
yeah,
anymore, is what
we're
you're telling
trying
me.
to replace those trigger leads with a modeled behavioral thing, right? That says, look, this consumer, based on their other behaviors, is likely going to be in market.
How are you
right?
triggering that? How do you know? What do you look at?
So
What's the behavior? Like, this is just fascinating to me. What's the behavior that actually tells you this guy's about to buy a mortgage in 6 months?
I don't know. And that's right. The horrible thing about
What do you
all
mean
of
you
this
don't know?
is that our models are built on thousands of variables, and those thousands of variables interact with each other in millions of ways, right? And those millions of interactions exist on multiple different tree-based models. And so by the time we get to something that works and gives us probabilities, we're at 10 million decision points, right? That tell us that, hey, if you have recently changed the brand of lunch meat that you consume, and right, you're now a new subscriber to AARP magazine, and you tend to buy premium gas, and right, it's this sort of thing that's well beyond what a human could sit down and figure out from these thousands of variables. And so that's why we have a giant room full of computers, right, to model these things out and say, look, there are interactions between all of these terms that tell us pieces of information that we would never figure out on our own.
What's the tech they use to model this? How did you go about making this model?
So we build our models in a variety of different ways, depending upon what we're trying to solve for, right?
And you built these models yourself?
Yes, me and the data science team, but they all go through me at some point.
Let's
right?
hear it.
No model goes into production
Let's how this actually works.
that doesn't have the Brian
I
statement.
want the secret sauce.
So you're not the guy. But it starts with performance, right? It starts with somebody that comes to us and says, I want to target for plushies. I'm looking at your plushies that you're giving away here at the booth, right? I want to target for consumers that want to buy plushies. And we've done 1 million pieces of mail in the past, and we have the performance on that, right? Whether or not they responded, whether or not they bought plushies. I take that data, get historic data extracted, appended to it through one of our data providers or multiple of our data providers. And that can be anywhere from, a few hundred to a few thousand variables, depending upon what the product is and where I think it's going to land that's appropriate. All of that data gets ingested, lands in our model building data warehouse, which is different than our enterprise data warehouse. From there, the data science team and I start going through it, combing through the data, if it's stuff that we know, then we start building out engineered features, which are things that we know in the past have been predictive of various behaviors. So it might turn out that, right, your lunch meat switching propensity, we'll stick with this one because I love that one, divided by the number of magazines that you're subscribed to is telling of something, right? And so we build those engineered features, and then we take all of this raw data and we feed it into the model building machines, where we use a handful of different algorithms depending upon what we're trying to predict. So in this case, for response, it's a classification problem. You either respond or you don't, right? You're either a 1 or a 0.
What type of algorithms are these?
So for this one, we start with tree-based algorithms, like a gradient boosted tree or extreme gradient boosted tree. We'll do random forests. We'll do a bunch of tree-based algorithms. We also tend to do a logistic regression as sort of a baseline. Logit is okay if the data domain space is not very confusing, is not very wide. When you get very wide data, Logit doesn't do very well, but it's a good sort of baseline. It's a sanity check on whether or not the problem's even tractable, right? And then we'll usually do a couple of, what I call the weird ones on top of that. We'll do some neural networks, some feed-forward neural networks.
Really?
We might look at a support vector machine, or my team will look at a support vector machine, and I'll tell them, don't waste your time. I've been doing this too long, and I know that you're never going to find the hyperplane that can differentiate between responders and non-responders in a support vector machine. And I hope I'm not getting too in the weeds for your viewers.
I assume that there's 2 or 3 people watching that actually understand the words that you're using.
And they're going, yeah, support vector machines. I hate them too. But then so we build from there. It's candidate models, right? It's which of these algorithms can build a model that's sort of predictive, and then which ones are worth the time to optimize. Right, okay. And then we'll do feature selection. We'll narrow down the features to a reasonable number, and then we'll do hyperparameter tuning to improve the results of the model. And then we just sort of horse race them.
So what you're telling us is this is pretty easy, and anyone can just set this up.
So the first book that I wrote, Direct Mail Targeting, a manual for financial services, which is available on Amazon or at my booth if you want to come over and get a copy. I'll sign you a copy. I wrote that first book as a how-to to explain how it is that you would build out this functionality in-house, right? If you wanted to have a team that does what my team does, there's a bunch of stuff you need to know and a bunch of people you need to hire and a bunch of equipment that you need, and a lot of people don't know what that is. And so I said, well, I'll write a book, right? And it turns out that everyone I've spoken to who's read the book afterwards gets to some point in the book and they call me and they go, I can't do this. Why don't I just hire you? I go, well, I like that, right? I would prefer that you bought the book and I made that money, and then you come to me and I continue to sell. But really, it was, look, this is a very difficult problem to solve. It's a very specific skill set that my team has.
That's how I feel about AI calls. When someone's like, I'm just going to spin up the AI calls, right. And my response is always, hey, I wish you the best of luck.
Good luck. Good luck.
I hope it goes really well. Yep. Why don't we just touch base in 6 months and check in? How it went.
We had that same conversation with a lot of people that say, I'm just going to target the kind of people that I want to call me, right? And they will respond. And we'd say, okay, fantastic. Call us in 3 months when that fails, and we're here for you. Yeah. Right? Because it doesn't work. The person that you want to respond isn't the person who's going to respond.
Fail. Just let's check in and see how it goes. I'm a little nicer about it.
Right. It might work.
Every once in a while, I tell them, let me just be honest with you. You don't have a fucking chance in hell of making this happen. Which, I've had that conversation as well. Yep. But, you're a 2-man shop that's trying to do this with no technical knowledge. Like, you just can't. Like,
right. The big guys, as we talk all the time, look, there's no chance that Chase is going to call me tomorrow and say, we want to use your direct mail targeting models, because Chase has the function in-house.
No, you're just doing direct mail, though? Is like, so what if someone takes your data? I can't feed this into a digital ad platform. I can't use this for Facebook targeting. I can't use this for...
We are always expanding.
Google or native or...
Yeah, we're always expanding, not just the verticals, right? Not just financial and home services and auto warranty and right, the verticals we're doing, but also the channels by which these models work in, right? So we started with direct mail, and that's still our bread and butter. We do most of our business in direct mail, but we do a bunch of business in email targeting. We have clients that are asking us to do outbound phone targeting, which is a problem, as we were talking earlier about TCPA opt-in. And so
that's why the way around that is you take your targeting data and then you start feeding it into these other systems. And you say, and this is my custom audience. Yeah. And then you send them to a lander and you get an inbound call. You have them do a form fill from that lander. Right.
So we're always looking for new verticals, and we have models for email, we have models for social, but I tend to talk about direct mail because direct mail is where most of our business is, and I think it's for 2 reasons. One, it's because it's how we formed the company, and it's where we started and what we built.
I always thought direct mail was dead. I always thought direct mail can't work anymore.
This is the other reason that I talk about direct mail all the time, because listen, for every guy like you that says direct mail is dead, right? That's one less piece of mail that's in a mailbox.
Well, I thought until I started coming to these things and I started talking to people and clients.
Mail,
I have clients that say we're almost 100% direct mail for getting in.
We have clients that are 100% direct mail. That's all they do is direct mail. And we love it because we're helping them and they're happy with direct mail. And I was talking to a guy and he said, I thought direct mail was dead. And I said, yes. And then he said something about, because he never sees junk mail in his mailbox. And I said, that's perfect, because if I put a piece of mail in your mailbox, it's the only one, right?
And you're gonna
I'm not competing with 15 other pieces of junk mail. And if I've done a good job and the outer envelope is compelling to get you to open it, right? And I've done a good job of designing the piece, which we have a creative team in-house that does this, the same approach, a data-driven approach to creative. If we do a good job at that, then right, it's the only one. We're competing with nobody.
I literally thought direct mail was dead, but the guys I know who do this, they swear to God they're killing it on direct mail.
The economics
in
of
a
direct
bunch
mail.
of different spaces.
Yeah. The economics isn't quite as good as it used to be, right? I mean, postal rates are going up. The cost of paper is going
the
up.
economics of email as good as it used to be? Or how about Facebook? How about Google? How about pick one? Which one have the economics not gotten worse on?
Right. I think direct mail has gotten worse a little bit faster than some of the other ones, for a variety of reasons.
The postal rates are
killing, right? Are killing us. But right, and that's where we come in, right? So we look at it as, look, if our targeting can get you to the point where those postal rate increases don't matter because you're getting responses to make up for it, right? And if your conversion rates are driving you over the edge, you're making enough money to pay for the increase in the cost of production, the increase in the cost of postage, the increase in the cost of ink, for crying out loud.
It's a no-brainer. I mean, if you can bring someone from 0.3 to 1.
To 1 and change.
Right? If you're increasing it 3-4 times.
Yeah.
That's the difference between a failed campaign and a successful campaign. And if you're doing a lot of home service type stuff or financial service stuff, I do those too because they're big ticket and it works well for calls because they're big ticket items.
And if we can drive you from 30 basis points to 1% and change, then we've got a client for a long time, right? Yeah. And so us providing a good service to our clients lets them put more mail in the mailbox.
It's a no-brainer if that works.
It's everybody's happy.
I gotta say, I appreciate you coming on here. This was a fun conversation, a little different conversation. Why don't you tell everyone where to find you?
So, Decision Science, you can find us online at decisionscience.llc.
.llc, not .com.
So the .com, or somebody already had that when I went to get decisionscience.com.
See, that's why we're bigly, because I was looking for big sales, giant sales, huge sales.
Nobody else had it, and you wound up with. So we've got a bunch of domains, but most of them are too hard to say.
I think one of them they wanted to charge us like $100,000 or something.
Yeah,
and then we put an LY on the end, and
that was decisionscience.com.
And then you have bigly.
So our .com is decisionsci.llc.com, and then we said, well, no one's going to remember that, so let's do decisionscience.llc, and then everyone can remember that. So they both work. Right, that's the easiest one. You can find us online. You can find my books on Amazon if you search for me, Brian Stacey. All 3 of my books are on Amazon. All 3 of them are about direct mail.
Only 3.
Only 3. I know. Well, no, the third one's the history of AI. So the first 2 are about direct mail targeting for financial services. The second one is the psychology of direct mail response. Where
they've been talking about AI. This has been literally since the 30s and 40s.
Before that. So it was 1878, I believe, when ordinary least squared first defined, right? And
I was thinking of Alan Turing
but it's long before that, right? But as soon as OLS was defined as a problem, people said, well, wait a minute. If I use ordinary least squares as a method to find a linear relationship, now you've got linear regression. And so that's it. That's the very beginning of us saying, I want the math to predict the future or predict outside of what the data that I have.
And then DARPA was working on this forever and they just couldn't make it work.
Yeah. So that's the first couple of chapters of my book start with OLS to regression. I talk about linear programming and how solving for optimization problems in the 50s, right? You combine all these things together, the logistic regression from the 40s, that from the 50s, and it leads right up to today where, we've sort of said AI is a thing, and I think a lot of us are using the term incorrectly. A lot of us are using terms describing domain-specific AI to think about it as a general AI. And you see this every time anybody asks ChatGPT to answer a math problem. right? It wasn't trained on math. It was trained on words, right? ChatGPT is just trying to find the best next word. That's all it's trying to do.
A lot better at math now.
Right? It has, but it's still not great at math, right? And that's we tell our clients, potential clients, that a lot when they say, I'm just going to use the AI thing to do this, and I go, again, right?
You know what it's really bad at? Time.
Yeah.
Time. It's terrible at time.
It's well, because what's time but math, right? And it's not great at math. We're great at math. We understand the part of AI that solves the math problem, and the math problem for us is either predicting a discrete number or a continuous number, right? It's either classification or a regression problem where I'm trying to predict a dollar amount for something, and you just can't use a large language model for that. You just can't. But you can write a book about it, and I did.
Hey, pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on, man.
Very nice, very nice. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to Talk to the Future, where the future of sales isn't predicted, it's built. If you got value from this episode, make sure to subscribe, share it with your team, and stay connected for more conversations with the people driving what's next. Because what's working tomorrow is already being built today.